Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for an all new episode recap of today's Daysofourlives, March 27, 2026. Honestly, this was a wonderful episode and I just loved how all the elements played together, and it was definitely worth watching today. So let's get into the first part where Roman and Paulina they're setting up the event for when Chanel and Johnny come over with Trey, because today is when they officially have Trey adopted into their family. Like now it's a full-on legal thing. So they're there talking about the whole event and how they're just happy that he's finally becoming a part of the family. And while that's happening, EJ's over there having a drink, feeling sorrowful about not being involved in these happenings. So Roman leaves or something, and then I guess before that EJ comes and he said he couldn't help overhearing what's going on for baby Trey. So he just felt like he didn't get any invite to it. And Roman leaves at this point, and Paulina is asking him what's going on, and he said that the whole thing is going on well with regards to Lexi, and she's just really just on edge because again it's all happy for EJ. EJ is going to profit from it financially and he'll get his sister back. But Paulina stands to lose everything. She might lose her marriage, her whole family, all of that because of this whole new event happening. So while they're going at it, Roman comes in. Roman is like, am I interrupting something? So Paulina had to make up something saying that I'm just telling EJ that his invite wasn't in the email or he is not a part of the events, and I can't really control that at all because that is just Johnny and Chanel's wishes. So at this point, EJ tells Paulina that, all right, give them all my best wishes, and he leaves. And Roman said that even though EJ is evil as they come, I do feel bad for him. And Paulina said, you alone in that boat because I don't. So EJ's closing the door and he's also hearing it, and I feel bad for EJ because he's not an overly bad father. Like, I mean, they can work on their differences. I just feel bad for him, honestly. But anyway, speaking of hearings, the hearing is that Rachel is gonna go back to Bayview. Kristen is free on her charges, but that's the unfortunate news. Now Kristen is livid at Marlena because she feels as if Marlena did the wrong thing. She didn't have to come forth right with the truth and her professional opinion, but it is her professional opinion. She's been doing this for so long. I'm sure she had to put her personal thing aside and be professional about it. She was subpoenaed to ask, and if it wasn't for you taking your child out of Bayview against medical advice, they wouldn't have to go through all this. Now, I don't see why Kristen can't take accountability for this. Like, you did this, right? I understand as a mother you want to protect and cuddle your daughter and make sure that she's happy and safe and all that, but the child needs help, and it's partly because of you. And Marlena had to remind her that the child is messed up basically because of how you indoctrinated her to lie, how you just influenced her a whole lot negatively, right? And Kristen's like, oh my gosh, you're blaming me and blah blah blah. Brady had to stop in the middle of it, and Marlena had to leave because Marlena is tired of just being blamed or trashed like that. She's saying that she will not be spoken to, and I agree with her. Like, Kristen is out of line. So Kristen is upset with Brady because she feels as if he just let Marlene off the hook, and now Rachel gonna have to know about this. And Brady said, you're not gonna tell her that Marlena said anything, because she's gonna hate her grandmother and she's gonna think that her grandmother is the reason why she's going back to Bayview. Now Kristen just thinks that Bayview is just a waste of time, and because of she was involved with Sophia and got into a lot of trouble, and they weren't being monitored over there. And that I will agree Kristen about. I mean, I felt like they could have brought her to another inpatient institution other than Bayview, and they should have mentioned the whole thing that happened while she was there, mingling with Sophia. They should have brought that up, and they really should have gotten to the nitty-gritty about what really happened with Holly and Tate, and that Sophie was the one who influenced Rachel to do that. Rachel didn't know that was bad, right? She was the innocent party here, right? And I just feel as if Brady said that to Kristen, and Kristen was like, "You see why we have to move her from there?" And Kristen at some point said, "Okay, me and her is moving out of town." And Brady's like, "Over my dead body, like I have 50-50 custody. Like if you do that, I'm gonna report you and you're gonna go back to jail." So poor Kristen is backed in the corner. She starts sobbing, and Brady said, "I understand that it's hard. It's hard on me too. I don't want to see her back there." And they don't know how they're gonna break the news to her at the end of the day. Now, back at the courthouse, before Malena left, the judge actually thanked her for her opinion in this all. That was the deciding factor in, giving the verdict of what should happen to Rachel. Now, she speaks with Belle personally because she is upset with how Belle conducted herself from a legal standpoint and how she knew about what was happening with Rachel, what was happening with Kristen, and Rachel's truth and everything, and not coming forth right with that to her. She had to actually subpoena the medical records of a baby to really find out that, okay, Rachel was behind poisoning a doctor who almost died, and she's not okay with that at all, right? And at this point she wants to penalize Belle. She wants to demote her of some sort. It wasn't to take away her license, but to really demote her, right? And she's just upset, and Belle is just apologizing for it. At some point, Belle sees Johnny and Chanel, and she's supposed to be there supporting them throughout the hearing, and they can tell something is wrong. And she said, it's how I handle things, and I'll still be there for the hearing and all of that, right? Now, everything was going well for Johnny and Chanel. The earlier they were just excited about where things are going for the family. Trey being officially a part of their family and them welcoming another baby. Everything is going all right. Johnny was kind of, feeling still guilty about how he handled it initially and how he hurt Chanel. And Chanel said, "It's water on the bridge. I could have been more supportive or understanding of what you were going through mentally with what you learned about your father, what he did to your mother. I could have been there." And he said, "How could you, you were in the right, blah, blah, blah." So anyways, back to the courthouse. They're there, and the judge is reading over the agreements and everything that they are supposed to uphold by Trey, and they agree to it all. And the judge was ready to just, formally announce it until Sophia and Melinda comes in. Now, the judge is like, "Melinda, you're in the wrong room." And she said, "No, the mother needs to come speak." Sophia is, surprise, speaking, but we already knew this. We've been knew this from the beginning. And, she made this a point to just speak and talk about how she wants to speak her piece about who should really be raising her son. Now, she sits there and she talks about how, Johnny wasn't really sure if he wanted to adopt the baby in the first place. And she talked about her traumatic experience, how she had the baby at home and nobody else was there. I mean, you could have called Tate, whoever at the time, but nobody else was there to help her. And she gave the baby at the firehouse. She paint this whole victim story, which I honestly did not have the patience for, right? But the judge was there, sobbing or whatever, or have these empathetic eyes. I don't. When she came in too, she was like, the baby now known as John Polymer, whatever it is, and Chanel was upset about that, and rightfully so, and the judge had to just remind her because again she could be held in contempt. So anyways, Belle was trying to prevent it, but of course the judge is already angry with how Belle conducted herself. So she said, "You sit this one out. At this point you have nothing to say about how this is happening or how Melinda is proceeding based on how you acted before. You have no right to talk about no legal error. So you sit this one out." This is when the big boss EJ himself comes in with his suitcase and he's like, "I wish to take over from Belle and represent Johnny and Chanel." And I was just here for it. But let's get into what happened with Rachel and Brady and Kristen telling her what really happened. Now she's happy about what happened with her mom, but she can tell that they're upset, and she asks why, and they said, well, Rachel, you're gonna have to go to Bayview. The judge heard about what happened about you coming out of Bayview early against medical advice, and you have to go back. And she's just upset about it, as understandable, and she's upset because she don't want to go back to that place. She's she thought that she was doing well with the therapy. She thought that she was doing all the things a good girl should do, and I really felt it for her at this point, because she really wasn't in the wrong with the supplements. Like, Sophia is the mastermind here, and she even was questioning it. What she should have done was speak to her parents about it. I'm sure they would have shut that down a long time and get Sophia for what she's been doing. Honestly, that should have even been, somebody should have even brought that to the courtroom to say, you know what, Sophia is not fit to be nobody's parent, or even have no say at all. But Rachel and Kristen are sobbing. Poor Brady's over there because he doesn't know what to do at this point. And they didn't get into what happened or what caused that, because obviously the child would have hated their grandmother. But, Kristen is just sorry about everything. At this point, yes, we can tell Kristen loves her daughter in her own way, but she did fail her in some way. She and Brady, but she mostly how she has acted and her crimes and all the things that she's put this girl through. Traumatically, Rachel has suffered a lot, and because of that, Rachel has to be going through this institution thing again. They have nobody to blame but themselves. Bad parenting, honestly. So EJ, back to this here, and EJ comes in, and EJ did a terrific job nailing Sophia, coming at her with all the evidence, the big textbook of evidence to give the judge, and the judge had to overlook it and, really think twice about what Sophia was trying to display as the victim, and Johnny did this and blah blah blah. I don't think they're really fit, because what if he changes his mind again and leaves her son and blah blah blah. All of this not making no sense, right? So EJ come with her fact after fact about how, yes, you can paint yourself as the teen mom, and how you gave birth by yourself and blah blah blah, but you lied about the paternity of your father, the father of the baby. And, Melinda's like, she didn't know at the time, it wasn't intentional. But anyways, EJ proceeded, and EJ is like, and furthermore, like, the father signed over his rights, and also you signed over your rights. And Aaron does not have a problem with Johnny should not be in Trey's parents. Right? And furthermore, let's not talk about your stint at Bayview and how you've been behaving over there. Like, I have so much evidence packed up about how you've been conducting yourself. You're not really stable, and all of a sudden now you start talking. You want to come after my family like that. And not to mention that you try to mess up Johnny's career, his reputation, by accusing him of sleeping with one of his students and messing up things further. You're just coming back to do a hit job. So at this point, Sophia sits down, and the judge asks Melinda if she wanted to speak finally, and she said no, that would be it. And Sophia's like, you sure? So she said, yeah, just sit back, it will be all good. And I'm laughing here now, because the way the judge did the next set after, I'm like, yep, Sophia ain't going to have no say after this. So the judge said, while she feels bad for Sophia, she believes that the baby is in the right environment, that the parents are doing a great job by Trey, and therefore she, wants the baby to remain with them. EJ did the damn thing. Now Sophia's like, that's my baby. I want to have a say so. And Melinda just rushed her out. And Belle even commended EJ on a great job, and Chanel thanks Belle for all that she did, which she really didn't do much in the end, but she, bit her tongue and actually thanked EJ for supporting them and for really getting them this win. And Johnny thanks him, and, EJ said, I will always be there for you, son. And, he tells Trey, welcome to the family. And I'm like, I would like if Chanel would get over herself and allow EJ to come to the party. Like, he deserves to come to the party after this. Like, welcome him there, because he's the one that really got you guys son. Because if it was up to Belle, it probably wouldn't have happened, because Belle is already on thin ice with the judge. So it wasn't gonna work out with her, and you needed a shark like EJ to come through and really nail Sophia. I was happy when Sophia came up, but I don't think we've seen the last of her. I would hope that they, find out the whole thing with Sophia and the pills, and hopefully they can let Rachel go on to a different institution, because Bayview is not where she needs to go, and they're not taking care of them over there. They're not supervising properly. And I agree with Kristen on this, but Kristen needs to take accountability for why her daughter is like that, and that's why this child don't have no accountability. But she's trying to come to her actions. And yes, Kristen wanted to fight her. She wanted to still go to jail to protect her, and that's all fine. But when a child wants to be accountable for their action, that's showing growth, that's showing maturity. And Kristen lacks that somehow, lacks the emotional maturity. She wants to always come for revenge. Who's to be surprised if she gonna go after Marlena because her daughter is not out of Bayview, right? The lady had to give a professional opinion on this, and it can't be about, your grandmother's granddaughter. No. The lady is a respected psychiatrist. She had to give her opinion, and Rachel does need help. And Kristen, like Brady said, we can't be in denial. We can't protect her from what is inevitable. Like, you already screw up the child so much. The child needs help before it gets worse, before she gets a teenager and she is, she can't be treatable. She is gonna be hardened. No. But anyways, guys, comment below your thoughts on today's episode. I thought today was a great episode, a way to end for the weekend. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. I will see you guys next week. Have a wonderful weekend.